Welcome to the ultimate CPAP battery breakdown. In this video, we're going to be looking at all aspects of what makes a CPAP battery good and trying to figure out which battery is right for you. So the batteries we're going to be looking at today are the Go battery by CPAPextras.com, the Freedom battery, the Pilot 24 and the Pilot 12 by MediStrom. And then we have the Snuggle CPAP battery. And last we have this big chunky boy, the Zopec Explore 5500. Now I want to make this video for travel CPAP batteries. So the first 5 here are travel CPAP batteries. I just kind of wanted to have a big 160 watt hour battery just to test, just to see what the CPAPs would do with more watt hours and see if it's worth getting such a big battery. This battery obviously isn't travel sized really. It's about the size of an AirSense 11 itself. So it is a pretty chunky boy, but it's obviously going to give you a lot more power. So for the first category, overall form and design, I'm looking at a couple things. I'm looking at build quality, size, and just overall look. So in last place, I'm going to have the Zopec battery. If you were to use it as a travel battery, of course, it is massive. It's naturally going to lose points for that. And then overall look, it looks very 1980s hospital, which I'm not, super fan of. Or if this guy's just on your nightstand, it's big, it's bulky, it looks kind of gross. So I'm going to give this guy a 2 out of 5 for overall form and design. Now the Snuggle battery actually looks pretty good. It's a decent size. It's somewhat thin, okay? But the reason why I'm giving it kind of a bad grade for design is because it feels really cheap. It feels extremely cheap in the hand. It like makes this rattly noise when you kind of hold it. And that's because it has an inverter up top. So there's a little more empty space in it, but it just feels cheap. It feels kind of dollar store-y. I'm gonna give this guy a 3 out of 5. Also, because it has the inverter, it is quite a bit bigger. So for example, if you're looking at the MediStrom, it's a decent amount bigger. It's about the same weight-ish, but it's quite a bit bigger. Okay, so 3 out of 5. I'm gonna give a 4 out of 5 to the Freedom battery. It is still quite a bit bigger than the MediStrom. Very similar in terms of how thin it is, but it is a little bit bigger. It's close to being awesome. The build quality is there. The size is okay, but I'm gonna dock points just because I think it's a little ugly. Freedom battery, CPAP, again, bringing this to school or bringing this to work. Some people might not want to advertise that they have a CPAP machine or a CPAP battery. Some people don't care, some people do, but overall, again, it looks a little medical and it's a little bit bigger. So 4 out of 5. And then 5 out of 5, I'm going to give it to the MediStrom and the Go battery, simply because the build quality on both are awesome. The design is overall awesome. They both look good. This one has a shiny feel, this one has a matte. This one does get a little bit of fingerprints, but has a little more grip to it. So pick your battles. And then size-wise, they're both the smallest batteries of the bunch, which hinder them in other aspects of this test. But for overall design, I'm gonna give it to these guys here, 5 out of 5. Okay, next up, charging options. I'm gonna start over here with the Snuggle. So like I said, it has an inverter, gives it more size. That means it has a typical socket there, right? A wall socket, so you can pretty much plug anything into it. It has a couple of USB-A's outputs here, which are really nice, and the DC input charging for this device. So not bad on the quantity of ports, quite a few, and I do like the wall outlet. It doesn't have USB-C though. I'm gonna give it 2.5 out of 5. Now let's bring it to the MediStrom. This guy is pretty simple. You got the charging input here. We got the DC out for your CPAP machine, and you have one USB-A. So you got essentially one port that you can use for other things other than your CPAP. Again, comparing this to the other things, one port's not that good. So we're gonna give this 1.5 out of 5 for charging ports. Next up, we have the Freedom battery. Okay, so the Freedom battery is very similar to the MediStrom. It has USB out, right? Normal USB-A, but it also has a USB-C. So that's really nice to have, USB-C. You can pretty much charge anything. So the quality of the ports, pretty damn good. Has everything we need except for a wall port, but the quantity, we only have 2, so not a ton. I'm gonna give this guy a 3 out of 5. Next up is the Go battery. So we got 2 USB-C ports here. We have a USB-A port, the DC out port, And with this battery, it's the only battery of the bunch that has wireless charging on the top, so you can wirelessly charge your phone. It doesn't have the wall outlet because there is no inverter, but for quality of the ports, I mean, you're getting wireless charging that's pretty modern, 2 USB-Cs, a USB-A, but technically it would be a little better with a wall outlet, so I'm gonna have to give this guy a 4 out of 5. And at last, we got the Zopec here. Again, 4 out of 5. So Zopec actually has the most ports. It has 2 wall outlets usable for any international plug here. So that's awesome. It has USB-A, USB-A, DC in, and it has USB Type-C. However, I can't give it a 5 out of 5 because it doesn't have wireless charging, and that's the only way I would give one of these batteries a 5 out of 5. So 4 out of 5 for the Zopec. So up next, let's talk about power delivery. All these batteries are a little bit different. With the Zopec, kind of does it all. It does pass-through charging, so you can plug it into a wall and then you can plug your CPAP into it. So you can use this as a backup power supply. That's really important if you live in an area where you might have power outages frequently. Then you're gonna want both a battery, maybe a travel battery, but also a backup power supply. And having pass-through charging, both charging the battery from the wall and then running your CPAP straight from the battery, allows you to always go your night uninterrupted. The Zopec battery is also universal because it's using an inverter. So it's gonna be powering your CPAP machine with the cord that it comes with. So your typical power delivery cord that comes with your machine is gonna go right in here as if it was the wall. That's the same thing with the Snuggle as well. It works with pass-through charging and you plug it right into the wall socket here. But the reason why these two are a little bit different is that yes, they both work as backup power supplies, but only the Zopec really truly works as a battery, and we'll get to that in a second. We're gonna talk about run times in a minute here, and the Snuggle doesn't last very long at all. So as for a battery, like a travel battery, I think it's only lasting like maybe like 8 hours. But generally you're gonna expect a runtime around like 6 to 7 hours, so not a full single night out of this guy. And therefore, I can't really give it too high praise in terms of being a battery. It's honestly more of a backup power supply than it is a battery. The MediStrom, again, this can do pass-through charging. But this problem with the MediStrom is that it can't power all CPAP machines. So like the Zopec and the Snuggle that you just plug it in as if it was a wall outlet, the MediStrom went the route of having 2 different batteries. So they have a 12 volt for your DreamStation line, for your Philips Respironics line, and a 24 volt for your ResMed line. That means that if you have a DreamStation at home and you travel with your Air Mini and you want a backup power supply, you're gonna have to have both. Or maybe you have a DreamStation, so you want just a travel battery, but you know maybe in a year and a half, you're gonna upgrade to Air Mini, or you're gonna upgrade to an AirSense 11, in which case your battery is now kind of junk because it only operates on 12 volt systems. Again, it has the pass through and it definitely has enough power to last a single night, but that kind of sucks. Now, the next thing is the Freedom battery. The Freedom does pass through, and the Freedom powers all machines, and it powers these machines through the DC USB-C out port, which is really interesting. So it has enough power to power all your machines. You can use it as a backup power supply because it runs pass through as well, and it works with all machines. So the best rated guy of this category is going to be the Freedom. And then we have another outlier of the bunch. We have the Go battery, and the Go battery powers all the machines. As you can see, if you turn it on here, you can just hold that down. You see 12 volt, 16.5, 20, and 24 volts. It's gonna work with your DreamStation. It's gonna work with your Air Mini. It's gonna work with your AirSense machines. But this guy here is quite a bit smaller than the other guys, and the circuit board, I guess to save room, doesn't support pass-through charging. So this guy here is the only one out of the lot that you can't use as an external power supply. So this guy here is essentially only a travel CPAP battery and only a universal battery pack for other electronics, but you can't use it like permanently plugged in like the other batteries. So because of that, I kind of have to rate all these batteries differently. The Freedom and the Zopec are gonna get 5 out of 5 because they both work as a power supply and they both work as a battery. They both work with all machines. Next up, we're gonna give 3.5 to the Snuggle because it works as a power supply, it works with all machines, but we'll talk about in terms of just battery capacity, doesn't really work as a battery. Like most people aren't gonna get a single note out of it, to be honest. So I'm gonna have to dock points for that. So 3.5. For the MediStrom, I'm gonna give it 4 stars because it works as a power supply, it works as a battery, doesn't work with all CPAP machines. And with the Go battery, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, similar to the Snuggle, because It works as a battery, works with all CPAP machines, but doesn't work as a power supply. So it kind of depends on what you need. If you need it all, then you're gonna have to go with a battery that delivers all those options. How long will these things last? Now, this is a very interesting question. There is tons of variables to this question. So I'm gonna give you my experimental results here first, and then we're gonna talk kind of about them. So the MediStrom 24 volt, I tested on the AirSense 10 and the Air Mini, okay? You had to buy a separate cable to run an AirSense 11, which is really dumb. So I didn't actually test it on an AirSense 11. So I only got the 10 and Air Mini for this guy. It ran an AirSense 10 for 12 hours and 45 minutes and an Air Mini for 15 hours and 45 minutes. Next up, we have the MediStrom 12 volt. Okay, this I only ran on the DreamStation 2, can't run anything else. And it ran that for 17 hours and 45 minutes, so really good there. Now the Go battery can run every machine like we talked about. So it ran the AirSense 11 for 11 hours on the dot, ran the AirSense 10 for 10 hours on the dot, the Air Mini for 11 hours and 45 minutes, and the DreamStation 2 for 12 hours. Next, we have the Snuggle Go battery. Now, because it's working on an inverter, it's much less efficient. So even though this guy is 85 watt hours and this guy is 88.8 watt hours, this guy didn't perform so well. So the Snuggle worked for 8 hours and 23 minutes on the AirSense 11, 7 hours and 30 minutes on the AirSense 10, 8 hours and 40 minutes on the Air Mini, and 8 hours on the DreamStation 2. Again, we're going to talk about these hours in a minute here. The Zopac ran for 20 hours on the AirSense 11, 17 hours and 30 minutes on the AirSense 10, 24 hours on the Air Mini, and 22 hours on the DreamStation 2. And at last, we have the Freedom battery that performed extremely well at 19 hours on the AirSense 11, 17 hours and 10 minutes on the AirSense 10, 20 hours on the Air Mini, and 22.5 hours on the DreamStation 2. Okay, so what do these numbers mean? All of these tests were run on a dummy head, this guy here, with an N20 ResMed mask, okay? And they were run at a pressure of 10 water pressure, without humidification, without heated tube. Pressure relief off, pretty much just blown air. So all these batteries, you're never gonna be able to run a humidifier. It's like you're running like a heater. So they're not gonna run with a humidifier on, so you can just forget about that. And that's where those numbers came from. In order to have a better idea of run times, we need to figure out how much a CPAP draws in terms of power on a real person. To do this, I tested each CPAP with a watt meter on both a dummy and a real person myself. What I found is that a CPAP uses about 10 to 20% more power when it's on a real person. According to my test results, I would have to calculate the real estimated run times to be about 85% of the duration that we got on the dummy. The MediStrom 24 average on all the CPAP machines on this guy was 14.25 hours. And so you can expect in actual use, maximum best case scenario, you breathing in and out, 12 hours. MediStrom ran the DS2 for 17.45 hours. So maximum real world, 15 hours. Go battery, all the machines averaged 11.1 hours. So your actual is 9.4 hours. Snuggle, all the machines averaged 8.1 hours. Actual real time, you're gonna expect 6.9 hours. Zopac, all the machines, 20.8 hours. You can expect 17.7 hours. So technically 2 nights of use. And then the Freedom battery, 19.6 hours. And then you can expect 16.7 hours of real-time use. So again, Freedom battery, you can probably get 2 nights out of it. Now, we have to throw all of that again out the window. Why? Because there are added variables that we also have to talk about. Mainly mouth leak, mask leak. This is best case scenario. So for example, let's say the MediStrom 24, we're gonna say the actual average you're gonna get is 12 hours, right? But if you have a mouth leak or if you have a side leak in the side of here, you open your mouth, this kind of gets pushed on the pillow, right? A mask leak. The CPAP machine is gonna ramp up essentially like infinitely to get your power to stabilize at 10 centimeters of water pressure or whatever pressure that you have it set to. Which means when I put these machines on a watt meter in the wall and put them on and then added a leak, you're seeing like 50%, 100% losses. So for example, in AirSense 10, when you're using it and breathing in it, it's gonna be fluctuating between like 7, 8 watts. That's what it's gonna be drawing, 7 or 8 watts. As soon as you have a mask leak or your mouth is open, you can be jumping that 8 watts to 13 watts, 12 watts, 14 watts. And of course, 14 is double 7. So you can expect if you have a mouth leak all night long, you're gonna drop these numbers by half because your machine is working twice as hard and drawing twice as much power. So for example, if you have a MediStorm 24 and your best case scenario is 12 hours and you have a mouth leak all night long, you're gonna have only 6 hours of use. So when choosing a battery, you have to keep in mind the pressure and how much you generally leak throughout the night. So what I know is if you keep your watt hours under 100, then you're pretty much good to go on a plane. So for Zopec, we can't really give this guy that high of a score because you can't really take it on a plane without permissions. Now it is 160 watt hours, so I believe you can get airline permissions and take this guy on, but just overall throwing it in your bag, taking it on a plane, there's a little more to go into this guy here. The MediStorm, the Snuggle, and the Go battery, so all these guys are under 100 watt hours. So you can take all of these batteries on the plane, no problem. Now the Freedom battery is interesting because it says it's 99.9 watt hours. And if you may have picked up on the capacity area, is that it performed suspiciously good to this Zopec 160 watt hour batteries. Actually, if we look at our numbers, we can see that it ran the DreamStation 2 for half an hour longer than a battery with like 80% more battery. So after doing all that battery testing, I became a little suspicious of one of the batteries. It's labeled as 99.9 watt hours, but based on the amount of watts a machine is taking and the amount of watts it has, it seems impossible that it runs for 18 hours, 20 hours. So I brought in an electrical engineer friend of mine to help me safely open the battery.
Yes. So yeah, 115.
So these are the cells here. What we found is they didn't advertise the amount of volts or watts on them, but I found the product number, found it online, and there is actually 12 of these cells in the battery. Now these cells at 3.7 volts with 2600 milliamp hours and them being 12, it's a pretty easy calculation. 3.7 times 2.6 times 12. And what do we get? Well, this broken Freedom battery is not what it says it is. It says that it's 99.9 watt hours, but it's actually 115 watt hours. What does that mean? It means you're getting more battery for your money, which is great, right? Well, most of the time it would be great. I mean, if you went to the store and bought some eggs and you thought you bought 12 and it actually came with 14, that would be awesome. But Freedom advertises as a travel battery that's under 100 watt hours, which means you can safely take it on a plane according to the FAA. You don't need any special permissions to carry this battery. And what they wanted to do is they probably realized that they could have enhanced performance, beat out their competition if they lied, potentially bringing, I'm not sure, maybe a fire hazard on the plane, considering the FAA regulates lithium ion batteries like this. Pretty weird that a company would lie about their capacity, but pretty sketchy too. Because of that, although it's a great travel size and it can run your CPAP machine for a very long time, obviously, I just can't recommend this as a travel airline battery on this video because they lied. And if I said you could take it on the airplane without getting airline approval, I would be lying. And I assume airport security is not going to cause you any concern, but something to note, you probably should get airline approval if you're going to bring this battery on a plane because it is over 100 watt hours. What battery has the best value? The Snuggle battery comes in at roughly 200 to 220 USD. Again, not that good of a battery. I'm just gonna say it's not worth the money. The CPAP battery is $525. At this price, you're starting to look at Jackeries and stuff at other options. It is massive, so it's not like it's that sleek or anything. Pretty expensive for a battery, but you do get a lot for what you pay for. This guy can definitely run your CPAP machine. It runs pass-through. It has all the ports, has everything you want. It's just big and chunky. The next thing is the Freedom battery at $300 to $350 US, depending where you're buying it, which coupons. It looks like roughly in that range. Again, pretty decent for this. You can run almost 2 nights, most CPAP machines, so pretty decent there. But also, of course, like any of these batteries, it is quite expensive. You know, it's quite a lot to spend on a battery. And then we have the Medistrom battery, again, 300 to 350 USD. If you're running an AirSense 11, you are gonna buy a cable on top of that. That's like 25 bucks. So this is around 370 USD. And then the Go battery just drops just insane value on the whole squad here. $99 right now. That's insane value for 88.8 watt hours. The value I'm gonna have to give to the Go battery because it is like a third the price of the rest of these batteries. And if you're at a lower pressure, it's insane value. Again, doesn't have pass-through charging, but what is interesting is because it has the wireless charging, because it has the USB-C, and because it's so small, you can use this battery for your laptop, for your computers, like drones, cameras. You can charge anything with this battery, just like the other batteries, but it's just so much smaller than the other batteries. For $99, you can kind of justify, this is like in the range of like typical battery banks, but you can also use it for your CPAP. So it's a great universal battery and it's a great priced battery for a CPAP battery. So really, really good value there. So overall thoughts and opinions here. CPAP is kind of big for a travel battery, so I'm just gonna leave that be. You know if you wanna buy it. But for the other 4 or 5 batteries here, it's kind of hard to pick a winner. Never mind, we can take the Snuggle out because that, I mean, it's terrible. And then, so we got the Medistrom, we got the Freedom, and then we got the Go battery. Winner, if you want a universal battery that you can use all day long, all your electronics, you don't care about pass-through charging, you just want a battery that you can take on a plane, you can take on a camping trip, it's not gonna add a lot of weight. Go battery, 100% the winner. Value, size, portability, universality, wireless charging, winner. Easy. However, if you do need pass-through charging, you will have to look at either the Medistrom or the Freedom. And because the Freedom works with everything, and whereas the Medistrom, like there's like the 12 volt and the 24 volt, and that's just straight up kind of annoying. And it's also technically more expensive when you factor in the AirSense 11 cable. And also the capacity doesn't last quite as long. The Freedom lasts quite a bit longer. I will have to say the Freedom battery is probably gonna be your better bet for most people. However, if you're going on the airplane a lot, please note that this guy here did lie about how much watt hours. So if you want a battery that didn't lie, then you'll have to go with a Medistrom. So again, like you can see why the answer is not as cut and dry. So that's it for this video. I hope you found this video somewhat interesting. If anything, somewhat educational. Consider telling us in the comments which battery you think is the best, or telling us if you think that Freedom lying about their battery is a big deal. I'm not sure if anyone cares. And consider subscribing. Take care.